A lot of times in business, our business is on a detour. If the quickest way to a point is running down the highway, we started out that way, we were going down the highway, but then one day there was construction on the highway and we had to get off an exit and then back on another exit. And the best point of information we can use at that point is an email address, right? Which seems perfect. Okay, yeah, you just correlate the emails and I can move them to the next stage. I can boot them from my marketing copy. But what happens sometimes is people use different emails, right? A lot of times people have like a dummy email that they'll put in for marketing stuff because they don't want their main inbox getting clogged up. Your business at its most simple version breaks down into 5 steps. We get a lead, we make a sale, we onboard that sale, we deliver our product, and then we offboard them.
This podcast is brought to you by Bambassadors.com, the go-to platform for e-commerce brands to create video reviews that boost social proof and sales on TikTok and beyond. Get your first video review created and posted by a genuine creator, completely free, no strings attached, and no credit card required at Bambassadors.com.
Welcome to the E-com X Factor podcast, where it's all about launching and scaling your business using sales funnels, automations, and smart marketing. And now, please welcome your host, the founder of E-com X Factor, Yaron Bin.
Hi, Rich. How are you?
I am doing well. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too. I'm very excited towards our conversation. I'm a big fan of trying to automate. And normally, whenever I start to automate, I get pissed, and then I delegate, and then I get pissed from the delegation. Then I try to do it on my own, and then I go back to automating. So it's a vicious cycle. So I'm sure I'll enjoy this conversation with you. For the audience that don't know you, can you share a bit about your background and how did you end up in the world of automating?
Yeah, sure. So I have a degree in mechanical engineering. So I spent the first part of my working life doing mechanical engineering jobs. I was a sales engineer, field engineer, estimator, project manager, worked at a bunch of different companies, kind of filling in all of these different roles within an organization. But I've also been a lifelong IT geek. I've been the IT person for my family since I could remember. I have aunts and uncles and grandparents. They all call me when they have a computer issue saying, "Hey, Rich, how do I take care of this?" So I have this passion for getting into the technology and learning about it and kind of figuring out what's on the bleeding edge and all of that. So when I started my business 3 years ago, I wanted to do something technology based. That was really what invigorated me, what I got a lot of enjoyment out of. And I started in Facebook Messenger bots, which back then it was very, very new, had just become a thing. And I saw the technology and went, wow, this is a really interesting way and new way of communicating with people. I think this is fun. Let me, start out doing this. Realized that I was very bad at writing copy for messenger bots. My mechanical engineering background, I come off like a lab report. Everything is very clean, but it ends up being like in bullet points and it doesn't flow very well. But I was really good at building the back-end tech. And I would have people that would say, "Hey, that's really cool. How'd you build that?" And, I'd rattle off, "Oh, I did this, and they go, similar to you, like, "Okay, my head hurts. Can you just build that for me? Because I don't understand what you just said, but I want that." So I'd build that for them. And then the conversation would lead into, okay, well, we built this. I also have this other piece of my business, this thing that I'm doing over here. Can we do something with that with automation? Can you help me with the tech back end for that? And those conversations led me to this space where, I now have conversations with business owners about the automation in their business, starting from a point of, what is the workflow? What do you want it to look like? And then I'm able to have a conversation that doesn't always go down the tech rabbit hole so that you can understand what you're asking me to build. You mentioned you try to automate something, you get frustrated, and then you try to have somebody else automate it and get frustrated because they couldn't do what you want. So I've gotten very good at that conversation about, okay, what do you want me to build? What do you think that outcome is going to be? So when I actually build it, and I think that I've done an amazing job, you look at it and you agree with me because we're on the same page for the expected outcomes.
Can you elaborate with regards to this? So let's say a customer comes to you. So how does the questioning look like? So what do you ask? What are your inquiries? Because a lot of time customers come to you, they probably don't even know what they don't know, like the capabilities or the scope of service that you provide or what can be done on expectations. So can you share about this?
Yeah. So first off, I ignore tech at the beginning of the conversation, right? So I'll ask them, what do you need help with today? And they'll start explaining a process, workflow for me. Maybe it's a lead funnel where they have a Facebook lead that comes in for a lead ad and they're trying to get it to their CRM and maybe send it to a Google Sheet document. And then, maybe they want to send somebody an email because they have to do a follow-up, right? They're collecting phone numbers and their workflow is, okay, you need to send this person a text message or a phone call. So that's devoid of technology. That's what they want this to look like. And then to get a little bit deeper, I'll commonly ask, okay, ignoring the programs, what do you want the person's experience to be, right? What do you want this customer's experience to be? Ignore what programs you're using, ignore what you have in your tech stack. Just tell me what you think the best path forward is for this person. And then from that, we've really gotten to the purest form of what they want to build. And then we can start having a conversation about, okay, what programs are you using? Okay, you're using Facebook. We want to go to a CRM. What CRM are you using? Are you using HubSpot? Are you using Pipedrive? Are you using, Trello in this really weird format? Do we need to change the program so that even if we don't, still not talking about automation, but are the programs working for you the same way that you want? And then once I can get somebody to that point of like, okay, this is what we would do in a 100% manual world, 10 years ago when automation wasn't a thing. Now, how can I automate different aspects of that so that the simple tasks are taken care of by automation and the stuff where you really need to be the one doing it, you want a personal email message. You don't want this rote, like really sales copy email to go out. You want to be able to say like, hey, nice to meet you, make it feel personal, or you need to jump on a phone call with them, right? So how do we get them to book a call and track that? What are those points where you need to be involved? I explain this as a lot of times in business, our business is on a detour. If the quickest way to a point is running down the highway, we started out that way, we were going down the highway, but then one day there was construction on the highway and we had to get off an exit and then back on another exit to kind of get around the traffic because it was backing up a lot. And then we kept doing that. And that just became our normal, right? We forget that we can run right past the highway. So the first part of the conversation is figuring out where those roadblocks were and where we're taking detours that maybe we don't need to anymore, or maybe a new road was built and we have a completely other option that we're not considering. Because if I just assume that you are telling me the best path forward, we're already starting at a net negative in the conversation. And I'm doing my client a disservice by not, asking those questions, being like, okay, where are we? But more importantly, where do you think we are? Right? Are we 10 miles apart versus where I think you are versus where you think you are? And how do we get to the same point in time? And then we can actually have a conversation about, all right, now we need to automate this.
Okay, so we arrived to this step. We're deciding about the tool. So how involved is the customer and how do you manage their expectations? And what does it look like afterwards with regards to debugging or reporting or optimizing the automation further?
Yeah, so in terms of expectations of what they get, because we're on the same page, our expectations are usually very closely aligned, right? I'm never going to be 100% perfect, but I want to get within a reasonable margin of, okay, this is more or less what I want. And we could always tweak things at the end, do debugging and that sort of thing. I think the key for getting that right is if I know what programs work best, part of my conversation with them is, okay, we're going to automate this. Here's some things that I've seen in the past that maybe don't work that well, right? A common one is a lot of people have a lead come in and then they'll book a call on like Calendly or Acuity or some, booking service. And the best point of information we can use at that point is an email address, right? Which seems perfect. Okay, yeah, you just correlate the emails and I can move them to the next stage. I can boot them from my marketing copy. But what happens sometimes is people use different emails, right? A lot of times people have like a dummy email that they'll put in for marketing stuff because they don't want their main inbox getting clogged up. And then they go, oh, wow, okay, you're a real person. I really want to talk to you. When they book the call, they use their primary email, right? That's the one that you really want. But now we have a disconnect. So explaining kind of those caveats of the automation to people up front. Like, look, okay, we can build this, but you also need to understand, I can get you to this point. We can build in a process to handle that extra 10, 15% of people who have a different email. But I don't want somebody going in expecting a 100% automated system and then be like, it breaks 3 times a month, right? What's going on? That's right. Might be breaking 3 times a month, but the other 100 times that it runs perfectly. So, right, that's still a positive. We're not looking for perfection in that spot. So that takes care of the expectations. And then testing and documentation is a huge part of getting automation correct. So we will always run a test with the client. A lot of times we'll put in a filter for like a specific value in the workflow that has to exist so we can turn it on. It can run live, but it ignores all of their clients. So we don't if there's a bug, we don't want to accidentally mass email some crappy email out to everybody that's missing, values in ActiveCampaign or something. And then they have to play catch up with their clients, say, sorry. We'll just tell the automation to ignore everybody, but them with, has to be their email address. So we can run everything, we can test it. A lot of times when we see something done out, we understand it better. Right? There is a limitation of talking something out in theoretical form where we can get close. But once you see a process, you go, oh, okay, I get this, right? A lot of times it's like, oh, I'm waiting too long, oh, we'll wait 3 days to do a follow-up. And then you experience that flow on your own because you ignore it. And you get to day 2 and you're like, I should have gotten it yesterday, right? Like this flow is wrong. 3 days sounds great. It's very arbitrary. 3 days, 2 days, 5 days. We don't have a good mental map for that, right? What's the difference? A couple days? But then when you've experienced that flow, you go, oh no, okay. I need to do like day after, because day after I'm still engaged. I'm still thinking about it. If I wait till 3 days, I've lost them. They've moved on to somebody else. They're on a different problem with their business. I've lost their focus. Right. So we test all of that out. And then we always record a Loom video of what the automation is of what we built. And they give a really high level workflow of this is what it does. These are the programs it touches. And kind of like these are the values that if you change this logic in your path, you will break the automation.
This is very important.
Right. It's simple things. Like a lot of times we'll take like a client ID in from HubSpot, right? We know it's a unique value and we can correlate that across people. But then if you change, if you stop searching an email or you move away from HubSpot into something else and you forget that you needed that value, you're going to break your system. So documenting it in a way that in 6 months, when you have a question or you need to come back to this, you can read the documentation and go, oh yeah, okay, I remember what's going on here, right? You got to turn that light bulb back on and kind of go, okay, I remember what's going on. I can now make a decision and it doesn't kind of fall off the face of the earth. And I like that as well, because for me, I've always hated building black boxes, right? Building something for somebody and they love it, but they have no idea what it's doing. And they kind of go, hey, if it breaks, I can't troubleshoot it. If I change my process, I'm stuck. Like it's putting somebody in a corner. And that to me is a negative of technology and a negative automation. So I always try to design out of that, right? Design something that you can understand what's going on. If we're sending a text message out automatically to somebody just to say like, hey, we got you, we'll be in touch in the next 24 hours with a Calendly link, next steps, that kind of thing. I want you as the client to know where to go to change that message, right? You shouldn't have to come back to me to change your own copy. And text. You should be able to go in and work on that and make those small changes. So the back-end documentation is really important for getting that. Everything up until that point is about the relationship as we build, but maintaining a good relationship after we're done work. And in 3 months, you go, okay, yeah, I want to go back to Rich to get more work done instead of like, yeah, he built it, but I'll go shop around, right? Like that documentation is really key to having somebody be happy with their decision to automate long-term, not just in those couple weeks afterwards when everything's still fresh in your mind.
Yeah, I agree, because for me, like I had like a developer who helped me do some custom coding in WordPress backend, and no documentation, no nothing. And I was kind of stuck with him for a very long period because he did everything and I had no idea what's going on the backend. And it was, and at the beginning, it was good for him because I was like a paying customer and I was kind of captivated. But at the end of the day, I wouldn't recommend him to anyone else because he kind of left me with not too many alternatives. So this is very important. But can you clarify, what do you expect from the business owner? Okay, a business owner comes to you, he clarifies his needs and goals. But do you expect them to have some sort of understanding of the automation, or what do you expect from them?
My expectation from them is that they understand their business. My role is to help them understand the automation, regardless of where they come to me in their understanding, right? Really what I need from them is to be able to have a conversation about what they want their business to look like and how they want it to work. And then I can meet them where they are from there. But that conversation does take a level of openness, and to do it at the best level, it takes a level of openness that I don't think we're always prepared for. You know, a lot of times as business owners, it's our baby and we tend to be very protective of our baby. And it's tough sometimes to, drop that wall and really talk about what's going on. But it's absolutely required to make that happen. And, we do things like we're happy to sign NDAs with people to protect, IP and that sort of thing to help them be more comfortable. But yeah, really, that's the big expectation. If I work with you, I definitely need your logins, right? I can't do my job without getting into your programs. Right? You're tying my hands if you're like, oh, well, I want you to build it, on your own and then migrate it in. That doesn't really work, right? There needs to be a level of openness between the two of us. So if you can come to me with that, I can beat you. If you're experienced, if you've delved around like you, we might have a conversation at a little bit higher level and I might go a little geekier for you. But if you're very new and you kind of get it, I'll use more analogies in my conversation, right? I won't tell you what's really going on in the back end, but I'll give you an analogy so you understand the logic of what's going on so that you still understand, but I'm not overwhelming. I had a science teacher in high school tell me once that he was like, I'm teaching you a lie about science, right? And then when you get to college, they're going to teach you another lie about science. And then if you go get a master's, they're going to teach you another lie about science. The difference is those lies go far closer and closer to the truth. They're all valid, but they're ignoring some parts of the conversation that if I tell that to you, you're just going to get lost, right? If we start having a conversation about quantum mechanics and I go into the math about quantum mechanics, right, you're like, okay, great, but I don't understand this, right? So what's a lie, quote unquote, that I can tell you that's true about quantum mechanics, but is simple enough that you understand it. And maybe there's a couple aspects that are, kind of fudged. They're true, but they're not the perfect truth, right? So a lot of what that conversation is like, okay, how big of a lie do I need to tell you about the automation? And maybe that, again, that idea of I can't write copy, right? Everybody listening to this now understands that, but I can't write a line of copy that says, I'm going to lie to you.
Awesome. Because I basically asked the question because a lot of time people might not know enough about the capabilities and also not have, especially people who don't have like a developer background, they don't understand exception handling and all the cases that are like in the extremes. So I'm wondering if you like automated stuff and then after automating you had to fix a lot of different stuff because the business owner didn't notify you because he didn't even realize what he needs to notify you about.
Yeah, I mean, that does happen sometimes. More commonly, that conversation looks like we build something and they just go, oh, I have a next project that we need to build on, right? It's not so much that what we built doesn't work because we didn't understand an exception, but they came to me with a certain task. And then through working with each other and having that conversation, they realize that, oh, okay, I can grow the scope of what I can connect. And so we can build that first piece, and then we'll do another project that builds on the end. It's a great thing about automation is that it's kind of like building with Legos.
Yeah.
Right? I could build an Eiffel Tower with Legos, but that's not a single Lego. That's thousands of different Legos stacked on top of each other to create this structure, right? Eiffel Tower, Millennium Falcon, whatever you want to build, you can build it with Legos. It just takes a bunch of pieces. Automation is very much the same way. So I think the difference is maybe some person is just coming to me to build a Lego versus somebody who's a little bit more knowledgeable. They've built a bunch of stuff. They have a broader scope. We can talk about building 20 Legos, right? But either way, the next conversation could be, okay, we have this. How do we add on to it, right? What's the next chain in the puzzle?
Quick favor, guys. If you enjoy these shows and have been a listener for quite some time now, we would really appreciate it if you could take the time to give us a review on iTunes, Stitcher, or whatever your preferred podcast app may be. Having lots of ratings and audience feedback makes our show become more visible across multiple platforms. And it also supports our mission of helping as many people as possible to become better marketers and better entrepreneurs. So if you're not driving and it wouldn't be dangerous, pause this thing right now and give us an honest review over your podcast app, and we will love you even more than we already do. Thank you for taking the time, and I hope you enjoyed the show. Can you share examples of an automation that people don't normally request from you, but you find it very impactful?
So I would say I love doing this because it's pretty straightforward from a tech perspective, but leveraging Google Sheets for data and then leveraging that for information and reminders to you or your team. A lot of times, either we don't even have anything saved in Google Sheet. We have our programs with all of the data, but we don't have a central location of it. Because if you're not automating it, it's really hard to pull that information into a Google Sheet, right? You got to go to maybe 5 different programs. You got to download the information. Then you got to figure out how to sort it. Right? It's like, okay, this is a week's worth of work. I don't care enough. I don't need this. If we're already automating a process and we have access to the information, it's really easy for us to add on a step at the end that just says, I want a master record of all of my clients, and I want a column for everything that they do. Right? So we just search for that person in the Google Sheet and we update them. Right? They've purchased this product. They started being a customer at this point. They booked a call on this date. They came back to us on this date. They're at this stage of the process. All of those data points, dump them into a Google Sheet. Then what we can do with that is we can start creating reminders for you or your team of what's going on. A great one is if we're dumping all of your new leads into your Google Sheet, and then we're changing those based off of sales, you can get an email every morning that says, you had 10 new leads yesterday, you had 50 new leads this week, 30% of those converted to customers. Here's the list of customers.
Nice. Like pushing data, pushing notifications and data.
Right. But because it's a master record, we can pull exactly what you need. A hard part about looking at that data like that is it's too much, right? We could have 50 columns worth of information and you look at it and go, all right, this is the same problem in a different location, right? I can't read this. But we don't want to read the sheet. We just want it in a single location. So we can send you that email for that targeted information, right? Or we could build a Google Data Studio and give you graphs of what's going on. So you log into your Data Studio and it just shows you a graph of, here's your load for the week, your load for the month, and your load for the year, right? And it's 3 graphs, very simple, correlated through all of the information that we're dumping into a sheet. And for us, if we're already automating something else, that's low-hanging fruit for us because it's so easy to just add on a little quick step. You take 10 minutes, build a Google Sheet, you put in all the columns, and then you just start mapping information to it. And from there, you can do whatever we want with it. It's, if in 3 months you go, okay, great, I love these. I don't need the monthly graph anymore because I only care about the week. but I'd really like to know, how long they stay in the week, right? Are we converting on 2 days versus 3 days? So let's change that graph and pull in a new one, right? You have this flexibility once you've built the base to make adjustments and changes to the information coming out as it suits you.
Do you have any examples that come to mind with regards to processes that as well are low-hanging fruit for e-commerce store owners?
Yeah, so I would say, definitely the Google Sheet data is low-hanging fruit for e-commerce. If you want to make a decision about something, the best way to make that decision is look at data. A lot of times in e-commerce, we're always tweaking stuff, or we try something new, or we're trying to get our conversion rates up. So having that sheet would allow you to try it and then look back and go, okay, before this, I had a conversion of 40%. I tried this, it went down to 35%, or maybe it went up to 42%. Okay, good change. Now let's tweak something else, right? Living off of data. But more so, what I like for e-commerce is doing the touches to your client, the person purchasing, because they did something in your store, not because you think they did something in your store, right? A lot of people know of lost cart, where if you you leave a cart, you get a text message, but expand that out to even if once they purchase a product, we know what product they purchased. So if there's some common products, you can send them a thank you email that tells them what the product is, maybe gives them a couple links of how best to use the product, right? Thanks for purchasing this thing. Here's, we're going to ship it within the next 24 hours. You're going to get an email notifying you if you want to get text messages. Here's how you're doing it. And oh, by the way, I think you're really going to love this. Here's a couple a couple reviews from clients that bought it in the past of what they did. Right? That touch, we know they bought it, so let's do something with that information. In terms of, I love to put out reminder to the team that, okay, this is what happens, and then correlate that with emails to either the manager or to the team as well of when things get dropped, right? Because in e-commerce, we can see when the purchase happened. We can also build triggers off of when it goes into ship status in our programs. And we should expect that to be, maybe somewhere between 24 and 48 hours commonly, right? That's our band. So we could build out an automation that says, all right, if a product is over 48 hours, I want an email with it in the morning that says, this is late and here's all of the information. So we can be reactive to that and provide a better service for the customer, because we don't have, the idea of having to log in every morning and maybe scroll through, if you're a big business, maybe you have 100 things that you need to ship every morning, trying to scroll through 100 different items going, yeah. Okay, good. Okay, now I just wasted 10 minutes checking for something that I didn't need to check about. And then we forget to do it. And all of a sudden, then we get the angry email from a client that says, hey, I ordered this 3 weeks ago and I haven't gotten it. You go, oh, crap. So let's automate out those aspects where they happen rarely. But when they do, we want to make sure that we are really on top of fixing this.
This reminds me, I used to spend a lot of money on Facebook ads, and Shopify wasn't so stable. Sometimes they had bugs in the checkout, and I couldn't sleep because we spend $6,000 every day on ads. And when the checkout broke, so it was basically throwing away $6,000 per day. So I created an automation that called my phone, even if it was in the middle of the night. If the conversion rate dropped in the last hour from 5% to underneath 1%, so it called my phone. So this was a cool automation that kind of uses, like you're mentioning, if you have something that goes wrong, you want to be alerted as fast as possible.
Yeah, I like it as low-hanging fruit, because those are the type of things that, as the business owner, really weigh on us, right? That's the stuff that keeps, like you said, keeps us up at night of oh crap, if this goes wrong. If we can automate that out, so you just know if something goes wrong, you're going to get the notification. You can stop worrying about it. That's the type of stuff that really frees you up to, be in your business, grow it, live your life the way that you want, because you're an entrepreneur, right? Most of us get into this because we want that, the freedom, the ability to do what we want when we want. And, that's a half lie, right? Because entrepreneur, we're slaves to our business a lot, but we want that level of freedom. We want that life, that entrepreneurial life. And when we're being kept up at night because of what might go wrong, it's not a good feeling. So, I love those types of automations because it's not just the time savings aspect, but it's also the emotional aspect of like, okay, I don't have to worry about this anymore. I can go out to dinner. I can go to bed. I can, focus on this other part of the business. And if it comes up, I'll know. Right. And I can take care of it a lot faster than I could in the past. So it's all good. Let's focus on the stuff that I need to focus on, and let me be more relaxed and happier in my life because I'm taking this weight off my shoulders.
Sure.
That's the fun stuff.
Nice. How do you categorize automations? Because you mentioned emotional automation. I don't know if it's like a framework that you have, but do you have like a framework to categorize different types of automation? So some are time saving, some are emotion savers. Do you have different categories?
I don't have categories. I think that a good automation will always touch like all of those. I would say that I do have a very specific definition for automation. For me, that is, an automation is when something happens in our business, an automation does a whole bunch of stuff to create an outcome that does two things. It improves the efficiency of what happens, right? Makes it done faster, usually very true for automation, but it also improves the efficacy of the outcome, right? So what it produces is better because we automated it than if we had done it manually. And all of the things that we've talked about today have that aspect of, okay, this is better because we're automating a piece of this than if we're not. And if you can fulfill the efficiency and the efficacy, your automation is going to check all of those boxes, right? It's going to improve your bottom line of your business because you're doing some stuff bigger. It's going to allow you to do more business because you have more time. It's going to improve the emotional aspect of you and your business because of those changes and because the way it changes the way you think about it, right? It touches all of those different aspects. If those two things can be true when you look at it and go, okay, this is what I want to build. Can I say yes to those two questions?
Interesting. When I did also quite a few automations on my end, and then I wanted to do like automations that would move the business forward, not only save time. So I made a distinction between defensive automations, like stuff like using Zapier whenever a lead gets in and changes, and offensive automations, which is like more scraping stuff and maybe using RPA to like create processes that basically I don't want anybody to do, and they are acquiring more and helping in acquisition. So I'm wondering, did you play around with like RPA tools, or you mainly talking about integration tools like Zapier, Integromat, stuff like that?
I predominantly work with the integration tools. I mean, we do a lot of custom coding and stuff. We will do, some scraping and that sort of stuff in unique circumstances. I've always struggled with that, because scraping is one of those things that always requires upkeep. And personally, I like the side of things where like it's very stable and it grows well and scales well. I think that scraping has a lot of benefit, but it's a little bit of a different thing from like core automation. I think for me, honestly, it's because there's so much negative energy around automation a lot of times, right? There's a lot of bad things that automation does, and a lot of examples we can easily pull of like, a phone tree, or like, getting stuck in an email sequence and not being able to get out. I made a choice to kind of shy away from that. I can have a conversation with somebody about why it might make sense, but I would go point you to somebody else to kind of build a scraping service or something like that. I've focused on the other side of the equation.
So what tools are you normally using for the integrations and automations?
Yeah, so we use a combination of Zapier and Google Sheets. So in Zapier, Zapier has a lot of programs already, but they also allow you to build your own custom integrations within Zapier. So as long as an API exists, we can build out a custom app and create that process flow. I like them from that aspect of not building black boxes for people, right? The front end is really easy for somebody to understand the process flow. And then we can do our coding magic on the back end and make something work.
Nice.
And then Yeah. And then the Google Script side, I do because it's kind of like if we can't do it with Zapier, we can do it with Google. Google allows you to write code that you can do anything you can do with a click of a button in Google, I can do with a script. So we can leverage that, if we're doing something complicated with a Google Sheet, or maybe a complicated logic of creating a new folder someplace, and then we want to copy a bunch of templates from a folder into the new one when you're onboarding a client or something like that. That's something that's a lot easier done in a Google script because it's cleaner. Then that would be, 5 or 6 different steps in Zapier that we've just brought down to one. So the combination of those two kind of fills out all of the possibilities. And then, we also have done in the past kind of like going down that rabbit hole of spinning up something in Google Cloud and creating a custom app. And we can go that far. But I love, I'm an engineer, so I love the, KISS, keep it simple, stupid, an acronym. So if we can do it in Zapier, we do it in Zapier because that's the simplest version. If we can't do it in Zapier, we go to Google Script because that's kind of the next step up. And if we can't do it in Google Script, we'll go, okay, we got to build something out in the cloud, custom integration that handles everything.
I wanted to ask you with regards to what shouldn't be automated. I mean, maybe a lot of customers come to you with dreams, fantasies about automating stuff and just sitting on the beach. So do you have like rules of thumbs of stuff that you don't even mess with because it's impossible? No,
just because I don't like absolutes, especially in a business that's always changing. But I would point back to my definition of automation and that idea of having a conversation around what the flow is. And I do think that in most cases, you need to have some type of personal aspect at some point in the process. But I recognize that that might be different for every person and every business. So I'd say, I think there is usually something that we shouldn't automate, but I'm hesitant to say that out because I know as soon as I do, I'm going to find somebody who they're the exception to the rule. I would say that just go in knowing that you're looking for those items, right? Apply that efficiency, efficacy metric to what you're building and understand you can start by, thinking like, I want to automate all of this, but be open to the idea that as you figure out what you want to do, there might be things that don't need to be automated. Or I think commonly what happens is this might be a little bit too unstable if we automate it this way. Maybe we have a process where we don't know the email, but we're trying to correlate lead data. Like, okay, we could, but you're going to be about 50% correct, right? And you're going to have to spend time correcting that 50%. So either we shouldn't automate this, or maybe we just need to find a different path, right? I think that question of we can't automate this a lot of times might be a clue that there might be a more efficient way to get around this, because a lot of the programs now, they all have automation capabilities. They all have an API that allows you to connect with them. And they're building those off of the most common paths that people use, right? So there is a lot of information there about the way that you can use those programs. And if you're pushing the edge of what you can do with them, that leaves you with, either the idea that you need to find a different program that's more suited to where the way that you're doing, or just understand that you're pushing the edge, and that edge comes with instability, right? If you're pushing the edge, you're trying to build a sports car, right? You're trying to drive around in a Ferrari. You driving around in a Ferrari, prepare to spend $1,000 on an oil change. If you want to go to Jiffy Lube and pay $40, drive around a minivan, right? So understand what you're trying to drive and understand whether or not that makes sense, right? If you've got a family of 4 and your only car is a 2-seater Ferrari, you're kind of made a poor decision.
Yeah, for sure.
Right? Maybe you should go buy a minivan so you can haul your family around, and then, buy the Ferrari for the weekends, and maybe we do some fun stuff in some other place, but the core business is a minivan because that's what we need.
This is a great analogy. Thank you for sharing it. With regards to business owners and teams, so who are your typical customers? are they normally, does the business owner come to you, or do you see any time that someone else from the team, which isn't the business owner, approaches you?
Yeah, a lot of times it's business owners or somebody who has a lot of agency in the company.
Mhm.
Whether that's if the company is large enough, with the quote unquote VP or C-suite type person. I work with a lot of people who don't have that type of structure, but
Mhm.
somebody who kind of is thinking on that level, who has control over a large area of the business,
Mhm.
is going to need to be able to make financial decisions in the business, right? So even if you come to me with an idea, a lot of times, if it's somebody who's not the business owner or that decision maker, it might be an initial conversation with them. I help them understand what's possible. And then we loop in that person who can say, yes, okay, I approve you to spend this money to build this out.
Yeah, I guess it makes a lot of sense, because at the end of the day, if you're going to change and implement different processes, so you have to do it in front of the decision maker. You can do it with someone. Yeah. And with regard to the decision maker, do you have any way of tracking or showing them the ROI that they got based on the automations? Because I'm just wondering if people are able to appreciate the automation without, if it's not necessarily projects in the bottom line.
Yeah. So I'd say there's kind of two ways. A lot of times, at least for the decision maker, if we're doing like a one-off project scope of work type of thing, we spend 5-10 hours building something out for them. Their biggest ROI usually is time, right? Time of their team to do something else, which is equating to more sales, right? And maybe the metric is a little bit harder to track on sales increase when you're looking at something that doesn't connect all of the sales items, right? Because we fix one bottleneck and they're going to move that bottleneck down. But I do know, so I work with people on a 4-month basis going through their entire company. And for those people that I work with on that long-term basis, and one of the big metrics is we can increase their sales 20 to 30% without changing the team structure, right? It's just time savings and efficiency savings. They can increase sales by 20 to 30% with everything that their business is currently having. So, if you're running a $500,000 company, that's a couple $100,000 bump to your sales that you get automatically by spending 4 months working on automation and improving the way that your business runs.
This is great. And I have a lot of guests here that are agency owners or people like you that provide services to e-commerce store owners or other types of business. And one of the huge benefits that sometimes customers don't realize is the fact that you have a broad view of different businesses. Some are very similar to the business of the same guy. So you can bring solutions that you already saw that were working and implement them. And this is very, very, very valuable. And some people overlook this.
Yeah, absolutely. We don't know what we don't know. Right?
Exactly. It's a pity.
If you don't know, yeah, right. But if we don't know to ask the question, or if we don't know to ask for a thing, then it doesn't exist yet. So yeah, working with somebody else, having that conversation allows, I can bring in information. You can go, oh, okay. That made me think about something. Let me ask this question, right? Let me ask if this is possible. It turns the light bulbs on in our brain of going, oh, okay. Broaden the scope of what we think is possible.
Amazing. Is there anything that we didn't mention or that you would like to mention before we start concluding the conversation?
I'd say I would end with this. So we've done a lot of talk about automation and given some ideas of things that you can do in your business. When you start thinking about this, understand that your head will hurt a little bit, right? It is very hard for us as entrepreneurs to hold our business in our head. We kind of act like kids in a candy store where we go like, ooh, I want that. Oh no, I want that. Oh, no. Right. We get pulled in many different directions. So the best thing I can offer to help you combat that and to start to build a framework of how to think about your business is to remember that your business at its most simple version breaks down into 5 steps. We get a lead, we make a sale, we onboard that sale, we deliver our product, and then we offboard them. All of our businesses follow that path. So if you are getting stuck in the weeds and like having trouble following a path, go back to that simplest version of your business, because that's something we can all hold in our brain. We can all understand. and then add detail from that point.
Mm-hmm.
And then it allows you to always come back and go, okay, where am I? Yeah. Okay. I'm going through these 5 steps. Okay. And then add your detail in from that point. Don't try and jump into the deep end and try to figure out how to swim while you're treading water, right?
Mm-hmm.
Walk in from the shallow end and slowly get deeper and deeper. And by the time you get to the deep end, you'll be treading water like a pro, holding a brick above your head.
Awesome. Great. Thank you so much, Richard. Where can people contact you guys? Get to know more about you?
Yeah, 2 places. First is the website, richardschnitzel.com. Schnitzel is spelled Schnitzel. It's spelled exactly like the German food of the same name if you need to Google it. And you can also send me a message on LinkedIn at Richard Schnitzel Jr.
Awesome. Great. And we obviously will have the links in the show notes.
Excellent.
Cool. Thank you so much, Richard. Have a nice day.
You as well.
Bye-bye. Take care. Hi guys, this is Yaron again. Just a few more things before you take off. Number 1, if you want to learn more about e-commerce and marketing, make sure you check out our YouTube channel, which is called Ecom X Factor Official. Number 2, check out our Facebook group, which is called Ecom X Factor Marketing and E-commerce Mastermind. This is a great place to ask questions and connect with other business owners. And last but not least, if you enjoyed this episode, please make sure to share it with your friends and colleagues, plus leave a review at your favorite podcast app.